Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of In the Ring. I'm your host, Nicky Knuckles. Once again, I'm glad to say I have on today's show Maurice Sposato, otherwise known in the boxing community as Kid Sharkey. Kid Sharkey, thanks a lot for coming on today. How you doing? Good?
It's always a pleasure.
Good. Sharkey, I just wanted to mention an article that recently came out. There was a boxing show, and that was in Danbury, Connecticut. Yeah. It's a great show. There was a lot of former world champs on the show. We have you and Ronaldo Snipes, Mr. Snipes,
Right.
Local favorite from Westchester County, fought Larry Holmes. And we have Mitch Bloodgreen, who also fought Holmes, fought Tyson, and Carl Williams here, Vito Anafermo, Emil Griffith, former middleweight world champ, Iran Barkley, Tracy Patterson. There was some pretty big names there.
Oh, great champions.
So yeah, really great champions. I actually wanted to read a part of this article that says Danbury by Eric Gross, staff reporter. It says champs of today and yesteryear highlight Fraternal Order of Police Night of Boxing. So this was a charity boxing event.
Yeah, that was very nice. Nice turnout.
Yeah. It says, when Kid Sharkey fought world champion Sugar Ray Robinson to a draw in 1939, most people attending Saturday's Stephen Driscoll Lodge of the Fraternal Order of Police second annual boxing exhibition weren't even born yet. When the Brewster resident was announced to the SRO crowd at the Danbury Sheraton, Sharkey, who turns 90 in May, you're going to be 90 in May, May 22nd, right, Sharkey?
Right.
Received a standing ovation. Sharkey was one of several former world champs introduced in the main ballroom of the hotel prior to the entertaining boxing card that featured amateurs and professionals from the ranks of fire department and police department who were all sanctioned by the USA Boxing Commission. While the more than 750 cheered for their favorite onto victory, the old-timers received the loudest and longest ovations. So you weren't the only, what they say, old-timer that was there that night. Who else was actually there, Shark?
Well, just the fellas they mentioned there now. Of course, Steve Acunto was there too. Steve Acunto was one of the old timers. He was there too. And then Peter Woods.
Yeah,
Pete Woods was there too. But he's an old timer too, you might as well say, you know. He's been around a long time, and he's a nice fellow. He writes a lot of books and so forth, and he likes boxing. He enjoys boxing too, so he's always there for boxing, you know. Yeah. We got to keep boxing alive anyhow.
That's true.
Yeah, right.
He actually just wrote a new book, didn't he?
Yeah, he did write a book. Yeah. Fits the cup, something like that.
Yeah.
I remember all the time.
Fist of the Champion. I'm not really sure. I'm sure
but
it
was a nice book, and then Steve Acunto also wrote a nice book about boxing too.
Yeah, it was
the three former world champions, you know.
Yeah.
And it was really nice, and he put a lot of points in boxing. You know, he's an old timer in boxing too, and he knows it from ABCD, whatever you want to call it. And he's been around a long time, so I've always enjoyed being with those fellas because boxing was always my life. I started when I was 14 years old, and I'm 90 a few years, and I'm still in the gym.
Yep.
So that's longevity, so stay in the gym.
That's true. How come you never wrote a book, Sharky?
I don't know. A lot of times I was thinking about writing a book, but I don't know. Maybe I don't have the patience. I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of work.
You'd have a lot of stories, right?
A lot of stories. Yeah, well, that's my brother Larry tells me all the time. You can mention all the fighters you met, Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, and Machi Moore, and all those fighters. You can tell stories about them. I go on and on and on.
Yeah.
See, I said, but maybe someday I'll get there. Who knows?
You never know, right?
Right.
So let me ask you a question. How do you? They make all these comparisons about boxers, like Rocky Marciano against Muhammad Ali and how they'd fare against each other, which I feel is a little ridiculous. But how do you feel about that?
See, the way I feel about it, these fellas were all great champions in their day. And let us stay at that, because even though he said, could he beat this guy, beat that guy, it never happened.
Yeah.
So we don't know. After all, boxing's a matter of style. You never know. Some guys can be a world beater with one fella and then can't do good against the other fighter. Because, like I say, it's a matter of style. And so that's why I leave it go at that, and I don't make any prediction, because I say I don't know, because it never happened.
Yeah.
They were all great champions in their day, and leave it at that. That's the way I look at it.
Now, there was a boxer that, Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum. Tell me about him. Didn't he have a bad start to his career from a boxing manager
He started
standpoint?
when I think it was in Connecticut or something, one of the places in New York City. And Frank Backman happened to pick him up, and the fella said, "You can have him for nothing." One of the guys saying, "You can have him for nothing." But Frank Backman, of course, is a great manager, great trainer. You know, he's been around a long time. And his son Al Backman, you know, and I was always proud to be with him because, after all, he had 3 world champions, you know, and to be in the stable like that was wonderful for me. And they gave him a lot of good advice all the time.
Now, why did they do that? Why would they just give a boxer, a great boxer like Maxie Rosenblum?
Who knows? Maybe the fellow working with him didn't have the patience to work with him, see?
Yeah.
But what happened was, when he started, he was a slugger. And then Frank Backman made a clever boxer out of him. He taught him how to move boxes. Like a lot of times I teach these kids in the gym the same moves that he taught me.
Yeah.
In other words, the thing is, don't get hit. That's the secret of boxing.
Don't get hit.
And he shows you all the different moves you make, and that's why Maxie Rosenblum fought 34 times in 1 year.
Yeah.
These guys don't even end their whole career, but he was so clever and smart. And don't forget, he wasn't a puncher, but he was so slick and hard to hit. And the thing is, he used to outbox all these big champions, big fighters. You know, he was so clever, so smart, and that's the art of boxing, not to get hit.
Yeah,
and that's
true.
why I always tell these kids, when you jab, use that jab to win, the jab to keep the other fighters off of balance all the time. And when you pull out, still throw the jab out instead of walking out where you got to put your chin down and get hit.
Exactly.
A lot of kids do that and they get knocked out. That's it, and that's what happened. But anyway, like I always say, I'm always proud that I was associated with Al Backman. And Al Backman, poor girl, he had bad eyes, but he was a great fighter himself. He was a good puncher. And he used to spar with Tommy Mara at the time. And all they do is throw a lot of body punches. And that made Tommy Mara a great fighter because he used to knock them guys with their left hook to the body. See? And I always give Al Backman a lot of credit for that. And he was great in that respect, you see. In other words, he was a trainer, and he's been a sparring partner for his fighter, too.
Yeah.
It's unique in boxing.
Yeah, I was in pretty good shape. I saw an article that's on the wall in the gym.
Well, he was a good puncher too. He could punch. He had a good. I'm glad he was always on my side.
That's great. I had another question for you. There was a gym, and I never trained at that gym. It was called the Pugilist. The Pugilist Gym. That was on Yonkers Avenue in Yonkers.
That was in Yonkers Avenue, yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know about that gym.
Nick Mattina, who used to run that gym, him and Mike Pachano. And we had all the fighters trained there, you know, Ronaldo Snipes, Doug DeWitt, all the great fighters, Jimmy Young, all the fellas trained there all the time. And Nick Mattina was always good to me, you know. They call him a master, whatever it is, but to me, he was good. The Marlon brothers were good to me, too, whatever, you see. I don't argue with the master. I was just a trainer, that's all, see. But we had a lot of good fighters come out of that gym, and, of course, Doug DeWitt become a world champion out of the Pugilist Gym, you know. Yeah. And Doug DeWitt, well, he had a lot of guts, Doug DeWitt. A good puncher, and he could have been a good counter puncher if he just started boxing these fellas instead, because he could counter. He was a smart boxer, too. But as soon as he got hit, he made a war out of it.
Yeah.
So what a way he took a lot of punches. He'd have to. But he had a lot of guts, and I was proud to be associated with him, too, because he's a great champion. And the thing I loved about him is he was so good to his mother. His mother was a sweetheart woman. She passed away a few years back. But he was so good to his mother, you know, taking care of him, and that's really nice for a young fellow to be that way.
That's great.
And I just say I'm glad I was associated with him, with all these fighters, with Ronaldo Snipes, Carla Truth Williams, Tracy Patterson, all fighters that O.J. Torres. I mean, they're all great champions, you know, and I was always proud to be with them. And I felt that boxing was good for me. It's like when my old trainer, Jimmy Phillips, when I was a young kid, took a hold of me and it kept me out of trouble because I worked myself in the gym. Yep. And that's why I tell these kids too, stay in the gym. Keep away from the gym mills. Don't get drunk and get hooked up on dope. You know, keep away from all that. And in the end, you're going to be a worthwhile citizen. That's why I look at it.
Another gym was Stillman's Gym.
Stillman's Gym.
I'm definitely born way too late to know Stillman's Gym, but Stillman's Gym's a legendary boxing club.
I think that was on 8th Avenue and 56th or 57th Street, and that was a great gym. That's why, see what happened, when I was on the West Coast in the hospital, that's why I got acquainted with Archie Moore. He had a little restaurant there. we become friends. And then when he came to Stillman's gym, that's when I never worked with him in the corner, but I worked with him in the gym, like, you know, and I learned a lot from him too. He was a real nice guy, and he had all the great champions there, like Rocky Graziano, who used to train there, and what's the name?
Lou Ambers, didn't
Lou Ambers? Lou Ambers.
Yeah.
If I remember, he's not that good anymore, you know.
Mine neither.
But anyway, a lot of the great fighters. Bonnie Ross,
Yeah.
he was a great fighter. He was a great fighter. And Henry Armstrong was one of the greatest. In fact, Steve Acunto boxed at an exhibition with him one time, and he said, that guy was such a windmill, I had to keep on my bicycle to keep moving all the time. See? And so, like I say, those guys were all great fellas. I really got a kick out of that. They were always nice to me.
Yeah.
Everybody in boxing treated me well.
Now, that was Stillman's gym. That was around during the Depression.
Depression days, yeah.
And a lot of guys used to go to the gym, I guess, to kind of
get in shape.
Get in shape and get their mind off certain things.
And then a lot of times, you see, that's when. See, I was a fighter in the bootleg circuit, because a lot of times, like the mob-controlled boxing, and a lot of times these guys couldn't get fights, so they wanted to make a little extra money, and we started the bootleg circuit, unsanctioned fights, see. But it was good at that time, because if you got $100 in your pocket, or even $10 at the end of the week, you were a millionaire.
Yeah.
And at the time, because it's not like today, all the money around today, it's a bit different story, you see.
Yeah.
But a lot of great fighters trained there, a lot of great champions, and it was a real well-known gym at the time.
There was also the movie Cinderella Man.
Cinderella Man.
That movie, I really enjoyed that movie. And that depicted the Depression and what people were going through, a little bit of what people were going through at that time, especially boxers, being in a boxing movie. What was the feel back then in and out of the gym during that time of the Depression and when it hit? And how did that affect boxing?
Well, it affects boxing in a lot of ways, because, you know, in fact, people had to pay money to get in and see the fights. A lot of people didn't have money and so forth. It was tough in that respect. Now, talk about Jimmy Braddock, the Cinderella Man. Frank Backman had a lot to do to help him, because when in other words, when Rosenberg was champion, he fought on top. He used to give him his fights underneath. And when 2 years back, when we were in West New York, New Jersey, and Frank Backman said, meet my pal Kid Sharkey, and he introduced Jimmy Braddock. And I was surprised he was such a big guy, but he's such a nice, real gentleman. So I was always happy, and I was in a CC camp at the time, and I was rooting for him to beat Max Baer at the time. But Frank Backman had a lot to do with getting up to the top.
Yeah.
But they never gave him credit when they made the Cinderella Man. Never introduced him. Bill Gallo never gave him any credit at all when he wrote articles about him. But Frank Backman was really the man behind him to really help him.
Well, they never gave Herschel Jacobs any credit in the movie Hurricane,
and he beat.
Yeah, exactly.
By Hurricane Carter.
Now you mentioned the CC camps. They don't have CC camps anymore. Can you explain to the viewers exactly what the CC camps were back then?
At that time, there was no jobs around. You know, no jobs at the time. So Frank and Steve Roosevelt said, well, let's build roads and camps around the country, which we did. So that's what I did, and that was the best thing for me, because I got off the streets, and in other words, they gave us $30 a month, $25 a month to go home to the family, and I had to keep $5 for myself, the canteen. Now, that hard work got me in shape to be a fighter, you know.
How old were you then, Shark?
I was about 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
So I could swing a sledgehammer. I used to chop down wood, cut trees, and build roads and so forth. So that was really something, because, and they used to, you know, feed us and everything else, and then, which we couldn't get at home. But the $25 a month just to go home to the family was a big help too, you know, at the time, because there was no money around. At that time, you could probably rent a home for about $50 a month, maybe an apartment for $25 a month, and that was hard even to pay rent there, because there was no money around.
Yeah.
And that's why I say at that time, the CC camp was a wonderful thing. And for boxing, not only for boxing, for all the other fellows that keep them off the streets.
Yeah.
And that was a wonderful thing. And like I say, it was great for me, because it put me in good condition. When I was in the Marine Corps, hey, I was in good shape.
Yeah.
See, I remember when we used to go on these 20-mile hikes, so these young kids would drop out, and the guy could say, how come you're an old timer, you're still walking? I said, well, I worked hard all my life, and that's the difference right now. So that's what I tell them all the time. It's a great thing. I always tell these kids, keep off the streets, keep out of trouble, do something, whether you play baseball, basketball, whatever, and continue with that. Yeah. Never mind going to the gym and getting drunk and everything else. I tell the girls the same thing. I said, don't get married too soon, and don't having parties. Just stay in the gym and keep yourself in condition, see? Yeah. Just like Anne Marie now. She's trimmed down nice, she's in great condition, you know, and she said that's the greatest thing that she gets relief from coming into the gym. She really enjoys that.
Yeah, Anne Marie, you mean Anne Marie Rapper?
Anne Marie Rapper, Anne Marie Rapper.
Yeah, she got in great shape.
Well, Anne Marie, the other kid we developed her too. Czechoslovakia, she's a world champion.
Yeah.
We did a lot of things with her and helped her out. At the spar with her too, you got her in good shape. Yeah. And she's a world champion. We have no bitter feelings. We wish you all luck in the world. That's all. We should come over to greet us at the show last Saturday.
Yeah, we were at the Golden Globes.
Show, and she was nice. We talked to her and everything else, and we wish her a lot of luck. What else can we say?
There was a really great picture of you and a 6-year-old kid in the gym, and his name's Nicholas Dispenza, and he's a 6-year-old, and the kid can really punch, and he just loves boxing. Were you the same way about boxing when you were that young, when you were a little boy? And how did your parents feel about you boxing?
Well, they never liked boxing. You know, they always figured boxing was a bullish sport and everything. But I used to sneak away a lot of times and used to go to the gym anyhow. Yeah. Just like Stephen DeCunto. His people didn't like boxing either. His father was a music teacher. He wanted to be a musician. But all Steve wanted to do was go to the gym and play music on his speed bag and train with the fighters. See, and that's the way it was. So we would always just sneak away and do things like that. And then in the end, when I used to give them a little money, they say, "Oh, I worked for it. I didn't, things like that."
Now, who was your first trainer?
Pardon?
Who was your first trainer?
Billy Phillips.
Billy Phillips.
Billy Phillips. Yeah, one of my first trainers. And then Buddy Bimstein worked a little with me too. Bimstein, Freddie Brown, and then another. I can't remember all the names, but to tell you the truth. But Billy Phillips was one of the main fellas I worked with. He was a colored fighter that come from Atlanta, Georgia, and he was an old-time fighter. He told me all-time tricks in boxing, which I did a lot with Hershey Jacobs. That's why Jacobs was a great fighter in that respect. He was a hard man to hit because he teaches you not to get hit. In other words, make the move so in case they do punch you, they're in a position where if they swing at you, it won't be a solid punch. And that's the way you have to teach boxing. That's what we did. I did with Jacobs.
Well, it's not easy to be a boxer, and it's also not that easy to be a trainer.
Right, yeah. Some fighters it won't become, or they don't have the patience to train a fighter because they want him right away to be like he is, and you can't do that. Yeah. See, Jacobs has a lot of patience with fighters. He's a good trainer, but some fighters can't make good trainers for that reason. They have the patience to train a guy. See, it takes a long time. And like I say, some guys can be slick boxers. Some guys are just like Marciano's type. They're just brutal, just strong, boxers. That's all, just punches. And so you gotta work with their style. In other words, boxing, whatever style they have, you try to work on it to their advantage. Yeah. See? Don't try to make if the guy's just a slugger type. Don't try to make a fancy boxer because you're not that type. Yeah. See? And like Gene Tunney was a fancy boxer. I think he only lost one fight in his whole career, and he was a smart boxer. But Dempsey was a Manasseh Moeller. He was just a slugger, but he was clever in his own way and as a slugger. See, and like I say, boxing is a matter of style. Like I say, sometimes some guys are great gym fighters. When they have to fight, they can't fight. Yeah. You never can tell about a fighter. See, that's the way it is.
What do you look for in a boxer when you see a guy and you're looking at him in the gym? And
well, see, first of all, I talk to him a little bit and see what interest he has in boxing. Yeah. Then I watch him perform, whatever he does, and so forth. Then I size him up and see what, in other words, if he can be a smart boxer or maybe a slugger, whatever it is, and I work on that angle. Then the next thing I do is see, gradually you start training them little by little and putting them in with different sport, like I did with Jacobs. Then right away you see if they take a punch, if they can come back, they got to come back, then you say, well, you got to fight it. And if they dog it, you say, well, that's not his business.
Yeah.
Everybody can't be a fighter. Everybody can't be a doctor. Everybody can't be a doctor. See, it's all a matter of style.
That's
You
true.
have to be in them to be a fighter.
Yeah.
See, that's
Now,
how I look at it.
now,
You got to have good reflexes, too,
yeah.
to be a fighter.
Now, do you think that there's some boxers out there that you've worked with? I believe, wasn't it Carl the Truth Williams wore contacts? He didn't have the best vision.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he had contact. That was one of his handicaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, contact lens. Yeah.
Now, do you think that would have made him a different boxer?
Oh, sure. No
So,
question
because
about it.
nowadays they have that LASIK surgery that they do. Do you really think that probably would have made a big
Yeah, it
difference
would
in
have been
Carl's
a big difference,
career?
sure, because I had that done to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and back in 1920, in fact, I was in the Army Hospital in West Point, and I was a Marine there, and they treated me like a king.
Yeah.
And they knew I was a combat soldier, and then Dr. Riffle knew I was a fighter, so they gave me autographs, and they really treated me nice. They did a good job because I don't need glasses, and I can drive at nighttime, and I can still drive. And I look up and thank the Lord that I'm still here.
Yep.
Right.
Well, now you're training boxers currently, and the gym that you're training boxers out of is located right here in White Plains. Can you tell us a little bit about the gym and what you do up there and why you do it?
Well, the Westchester Boxing Club, of course, is Nick DeLury. If you take care of that gym, you're doing a good job. And I'm just a volunteer there to help you because you're like a son to me anyhow.
Thanks,
Forgive me. And so I admire you because you train in the gym, you work with fighters, then you drive the limousine, you go back and forth, and maybe you don't get any sleep half of the time. And I give you a lot of credit because when I was a detective and I used to work on these stakeouts, I used to maybe get about 3 hours sleep, and I used to then take my daughter to school and take my wife to work, and then I used to help my mother in the slipcover shop. So I know what it is, what you're going through, and I sympathize with you.
Yeah.
But that's the way life is, and you just got to keep working. And it's a wonderful gym to be because we got all a nice group of people that come in the gym. People come in there, and you got good trainers to work out with Ryan's a good trainer, and Chris is a good kid. He's a good trainer, and then what's the name? I call him
Ricky and Barry.
Barry's good, and then Ricky Henderson, and I call him Emmanuel Stewart. They call him the other guy, Buddy McGirt. I kid around with him, and I call Ryan. I call him Waddy Bemstein. See, but they were all good trainers, and they do a nice job. And hey, and they keep coming back.
Yeah.
They enjoy what we're doing, and they keep signing up all the time, and that's what keeps the gym going, and I'm happy for that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people like.
I like to see you make good because we tried so hard in other gyms where people didn't cooperate with us, and they hurt us instead of helping us like the landlord was supposed to do so much for us, and they never did. And then that little bit that we failed, we just pulled out and just kept going, and then you got one of the best spots in White Plains. The old Cage Scene Center was there, and you got a good spot where they can park and so forth. And the people enjoy coming there because we're not trying to make champions out of them. We just want to get them in shape. That's the way. If a guy wants to participate, then maybe you go to a higher level. But otherwise, it's a great place to come to. I mean, 4 days a week, whatever's there, and you can't beat that.
That's true. And you never know. We might develop the next Golden Glove champ next year, right?
You never can tell.
Got a couple talented guys in there that are training hard right now.
You never know.
And we actually have 3 kids. They're triplets.
Oh, they're terrific.
They're terrific kids.
And his father said they enjoy coming down because we take pages to teach them, and teach them the real style of boxing and different points in boxing. They really enjoy it. He said, and they enjoy coming down all the time. They want to come down.
They drive all the way down from Yorktown.
Yorktown Heights.
Yeah.
And they love it.
13 years old.
And they're real nice kids. They're real gentlemen. They respect you. And, they're not, and they listen to you when you tell them something, and they do it. And I enjoy that.
And they actually brought their cousins down, too, which a couple other good kids.
Oh, yeah. Frankie Daniels.
Frank Daniels is a good guy.
He played in the 96 state football championship with Ron Belingo. Ron Belingo was a great trainer and a great fighter to train him, too. He was a great fighter, too, great trainer. In fact, he was training Anne Marie too, Chicaracco, but I don't know, had a little falling out there. But anyway, we have nothing against that. She's a world champion, and good luck to her. But Ron Belingo was one great fella, a smart fella, too. He was the director of the athletic director at the Valhalla High School. You know, he got a lot of good football teams and everything else. And he's a great guy. He's a great guy for boxing. See?
Yeah, he used to actually coach some boxers at the Youth Bureau in White Plains also.
Yeah, I helped. Oh yeah, I trained a lot of fighters there too. I trained Larry Johnson. He's a lieutenant now.
Yep.
And I trained Captain Mike Murphy. He is a captain now. And then Kenny Smith, and a lot of other fighters. I've forgotten most of the names too.
Yeah.
And they all participated in boxing.
Yep.
Some competed and some were pretty good.
Yeah.
Like Mike Murphy used to always work with Lou Maurice. You know, she would become a good fighter too. And see, every time I meet Maurice, he says, "Meet the world's greatest trainer."
Yep.
I said, "Well, that's nice," I said, "but I work with the world's greatest trainers." And it rolled off on me because Al Backman, Frank Backman, Whitey Bimstein, Steve Aconto, Vic Delory, all these guys were all great trainers, so it rolled off on me. So if they want to call me the world's greatest trainer, I'm not going to fight them. Another time a mafia guy came up to me when I was down in the Midland, and he said, "You know, you were one of the world's greatest fighters." I said, "Yeah, but I was only a bootleg fighter." I said, "But I'm not going to argue with you." I said, "You feel that way? Thank you." And I had to go with that.
Well, Sharkey, it's great having you on the show again.
It's always a pleasure.
It's nice to see that they had you in the paper recently. That was a really great article, and we didn't really read the entire article, but you know, it's nice that you still are able to get out there and support amateur boxing, professional boxing, charity events that are going on. You know, even if they're not in New York and they're in Connecticut. And I just think it's a great thing what you're doing, and you're still keeping the spirit of boxing alive.
We did a lot of charity work. We worked charity work for the police department. When Charles Palmieri got killed, we ran a charity show for him. Yeah. We ran charity shows for the veterans, boxing shows in the Bronx. We always did charity work all the time. And like Mayor Joe DeFino used to say, "You know, Kid Sharkey, you helped all these kids, and it wasn't for money." I said, "I did it with my heart." And Joe DeFino is one of our great mayors too. He's bringing the city up tonight. He's doing a wonderful job, and he's really sincere. He really wants to help. He always said to me, "You know, Kid Sharkey, as long as I'm alive, you're never going to starve." You know, roof over your head. And I think that's nice of him.
Well,
He's a real nice guy.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show
my
again,
pleasure.
Shark.
You're always a pleasure.
And
thank you.
If anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to write, you can write to Westchester Boxing Club, 220 Ferris Avenue, on the first floor in White Plains, New York. You can call 914-328-1773. You can stop by and get an autograph, take a picture with Sharkey, and ask him any questions you like, and get any information on any upcoming events or fundraisers that we're doing. Thank you for tuning in for this week's edition of In the Ring. Hopefully we'll see you next Saturday at 5 p.m. Thanks a lot, and keep on punching.